gathering is the largest in Washington's history.
We did not receive much cooperation from the county.
I have a dream.
Whether it's based on race or dislike of people, they just don't want them involved.
We shall overcome.
We need the arm of the Voting Rights Act and the strength in it.
My name is Bernard R. Fielding, Sr. I ran for the office of Judge of Probate of Charleston County. And this is a county, of course, that consists of 2/3 white or Caucasian people and only 1/3 black. So even if you got all of the black people to vote for you, you still got to get a significant percentage of white people to vote for you in order to get elected. But this is the Battery, gentlemen. Boy, I guess this stuff down here is all 5 million and above now. Certainly the biggest challenge of the campaign was race. In 1990, it was most prevalent. Everybody knew that it was there. My opponent, in his great big ads that he published, he had his big white shining face on one side of the ad, and then on the other side of the ad, he had my slightly darkened colored face, in other words. And of course, then he had all of these quotes from his friends. But the primary thrust of those ads was so that he could advertise to 2/3 of the people in Charleston County that I was the colored boy and he was a white boy. In the city of Charleston, at one point, they had districts, but they eliminated those districts, you see what I'm saying? And made it so that you had to be elected citywide.
And we now recognize that that was an epidemic going on throughout the South to shift to at-large elections, because now that blacks were going to vote, if they had district elections, the odds were that blacks would win a lot of races. And so counties, school boards, cities throughout the Southeast shifted to at-large elections in the second half of the 1960s, and Charleston County was right in there. It's something called vote dilution. It was a very widely recognized and understood and intended way of making sure that whites could keep total control even though blacks could start voting. In the Charleston County case, the district court ruled that the at-large elections were racially discriminatory and violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. It was about a 70-page opinion. The case was won at every level, every court saying this system was discriminatory. As a result, there were new elections in 2004, and the result is that there is now a council that consists both of blacks and whites, Republicans and Democrats. It's a truly diverse county council. In fact, I will say it's only where racial block voting exists that the law allows these districts to be dismantled, or the law allows changes to be made and cases to be won. You look at it in the school board races, still turns out white voters vote for white candidates and black voters vote for black candidates. There's more white voters, so whites win.
I do believe that the school board needs to follow county council and go with district representation for their elections. We have 9 school board members, and only one of them is minority, serving a district that has 59% minority children.
When you have only one representative, that means you just get just that 1/9 of what's needed. The schools aren't being built, the curriculum suffers, the schools aren't being adequately staffed with teachers.
If you asked me in 1965, would we need a Voting Rights Act in 2005, I'd say, I can't believe that we will. But I've been here. I've seen what's happened in the last 40 years.
And we need the arm of the Voting Rights Act and the strength in it and the watchdog role in order to keep us on track.
If Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act is not renewed, then I can tell you, in other words, that you're going to see a reversion to some of the same dirty tricks and some of the racist tactics, in other words, that we have been subjected to in the past.
My name is Michael Cao My Nguyen, President of VN Teamwork, a community-based organization in Houston, Texas.
In Southwest area, it's very, a lot of Vietnamese down here.
They very much respect the freedom, the democracy, and they want to vote. But because language barrier, they couldn't do it right. That's why they feel very bad. Very bad.
In 2003, I did go to vote, but when I went to the polling location, all the material in English, so finally I went home.
In 2003, because I could not speak English very well, I did not go to vote.
I feel frustrated. I feel very upset. Here again, on the election time, it's still English.
Well, when the Asian American Legal Center became involved in monitoring the Section 203 compliance of Harris County, we did not receive much cooperation from the county. So as a result, we contacted the Department of Justice and coordinated with them. The Justice Department came down and monitored elections in 2003 and 2004. The county provided us with more information regarding the effort that they took to bring their processes into compliance with the Voting Rights Act.
To be honest with you, when I heard the Harris County election official informed me that we're going to have the bilateral Vietnamese, I did not believe it. Because 2003, they did say that. They said, oh, I guarantee you so-and-so, so-and-so. And to the election day, nothing.
In 2004, I met a lot of Vietnamese people at the polling location, and it helped me a lot.
I got a chance to practice my voting rights in 2004 because everything was in Vietnamese.
What happened in 2004, the big difference is all in Vietnamese. And they couldn't believe it. If something happened.
It was especially rewarding for me to see a statute that was enacted at the heights of the Civil Rights Movement in 1965, affecting people and voters today in 2003 and 2004, because there are Asian American voters that are not able to vote because of obstructions in the system, just like the African American community were facing obstructions back in the 60s. But for the Voting Rights Act, there would not be any mandates that could be required of the county to assist Vietnamese American voters.
State resources are not available if you don't have greater access to the political process. My name is Thomas Shortbull. I am a past state senator for the state of South Dakota. I served in the South Dakota Senate from 1983 through 1988. Now we're going into the town of Kyle, South Dakota. It's the second largest community on the reservation. Tribal estimates is that somewhere between 60 and 80% of the reservation is unemployed. What would have been nice if we could have had some type of resources allocated to us, such as economic development loan funds from the state, but the state of South Dakota has done very little to support economic development on the reservations. In South Dakota, Indian people only comprise about 7% of the population, so if there's 105 legislators in state government, then we should have at least 7 representatives in state government, and we don't have that as a result of what I call voter suppression, gerrymandering that occurs in some of the districts. There's an intent by the dominant society to exclude people that they don't want in the legislature, whether it's based on race or dislike of people. They just don't want them involved. Well, gerrymandering is a political term, which means that the people in power, the political decision makers, try to create districts where you dilute the minority vote, or you dilute a particular faction of voters. Well, Legislative District 27 encompasses both the Pine Ridge and Rosebud Reservation. It's about 86% Indian. What they did is they put that area into 3 legislative districts, effectively diluting the Indian vote. When you create 3 legislative districts and you don't have the majority of the people represented in the legislature, that this clearly was the intent of the political gerrymandering that occurred here in South Dakota. The Justice Department came down with a ruling that South Dakota, in their reapportionment plan, had to create a district on the Rosebud and Pine Ridge Reservation that was 1 legislative district, and as a result of that, this legislative district came into existence. I believe absolutely Congress has to renew the Voting Rights Act, because we'll just go back to prior violations that occurred against minority people. The 2003 act by the Buffalo County Commissioners to create a district packing is a clear example. Basically what happened there is they put the entire Indian population into 1 super district, and then the other 2 districts had a lesser amount of Indian people. The outcome was that 2 non-Indians were elected versus 1 Indian person in the super district. And as a result of the Voting Rights Act, that the Buffalo County was put on supervision, which basically is kind of a wake-up call to the people there that, you need to do things right, or, the feds will intervene. Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act is clearly important to us as Indian people, because that pre-clearance that is provided in the law basically dictates to state that they have to treat us fairly in regards to our rights under the Constitution.
They go real fast. There's a lot of children in the morning going to school.
The street has been neglected a lot more on this side of town than similar streets with high traffic volumes on the other side of town.
The department doesn't do nothing about the problem we have here.
We need sidewalks for our children. What is it? What is wrong? Are we because we're minorities?
Voting rights translates directly to quality of life at the local level. Seguin, like many other South and Central Texas towns where Anglos are in control of the political structure, had a long history of discriminating against Latinos and minimizing the Latino vote. By the time the 2000 census was taken, Seguin, which is in South Central Texas, was about 53% Latino, so Latinos had achieved the majority of the population in Seguin by the 2000 census. Seguin had to undertake its redistricting and even out the population across the 8 council districts that it had. 4 districts already had a majority of Mexican American population, and it turned out over the decade of the 1990s that a 5th district had become majority Latino. In fact, it was about 59% Hispanic voting age population. The response of the city was very simple and very discriminatory. They dismantled that 5th Latino majority district.
If you look at Seguin and the way it's laid out, you will see that the Hispanic community is still way back in the 60s. There are no curbs, there are no gutters. A lot of the water is channeled down the streets to drain. We're going down the street called Aguila. So you can see some of the homes are abandoned. The potholes, the just curves that are non-existent sidewalks. Because we also get a lot of pedestrians traffic, as you can see here on this street. And this street is a cut between Court Street and Kingsbury Street. It's a major thoroughfare for both pedestrian and traffic. Of course, we're all competing for that money. Naturally, he who is in power most likely is going to take that money and take care of their neighborhood, which is just an old American way of doing things, you know. And Seguin District 5 should have been, or is, and can be, the tipping point, and now you have a majority. What happened, they added an Anglo neighborhood and a portion of another Anglo neighborhood in order skew the numbers.
And the Justice Department signaled to them that this plan was not going to work and not going to be approved. The city then tries to do an end run. They enact a better plan, but then they won't let any Latino get a place on the ballot for the upcoming election. The Mexican American Legal Defense Fund filed suit in April of 2002 and asked the court to enjoin under Section 5 the election process. And by that I mean we asked the court to stop the city from ramming through its election, which was planned for the following month, and give us instead a temporary restraining order, which the court did. Section 5 worked the way it was supposed to in this case. We were able to stop the city from rushing through with its election planned for May. When we got the temporary restraining order, we then sat down with the city and negotiated a settlement where the city would use its good redistricting plan, would allow for a period of candidate filing, and then hold its election, which they did in September of 2002. As a result, a fifth Latino joined the city council, and now Latinos are the majority on the city council in Seguin.